Among Gundam model kits, there's some Gunpla that have reached the status of legendary. Kits so good or so unique or have broken the mold in such a way that they have blown builders' minds time and time again. For whatever reason, they've just stood above their grade and provide an ultimate building experience. But even amongst all of those legends, there is one kit, especially when it comes to high grades, that its name just kind of conjures up a majesty and magic. That, of course, is the high-grade Dendrobium. This did come out in 2002, so it can be a little bit difficult to get your hands on, but it did get a re-release very recently through the Gundam base in Japan. Now, when kits are about 20 years old, I tend to be a little bit skeptical about them, but this kit is the real deal. It's a legend for a reason, and it has even blown my mind entirely. This is a monolithic piece of plastic, and definitely an unmissable event, even 20 years later. Hey, what is up everyone? Welcome back to another review, and today I'm taking a look at this right here. This is the legendary high-grade Universal Century Dendrobium. One of the, what can I say? This is a kit among kits. It's just a absolute legend when it comes to Gunpla for a whole lot of reasons. This is an older kit, it is from 2002, but it did get a recent release, as you can see there on the box, in the Gundam base in Japan. Now, I got mine through Bai because I did not go to the Gundam base in Japan, and you can do exactly the same thing. I'll throw the link down there in the description to Bai. But yeah, I will mention straight away, this box right here has just been used as an impromptu bin because there is so much plastic inside of this box. It is utterly ridiculous. But hey, let's not waste any more time. Let's get right on into it. So when it comes to a kit like this right here, this actually does live up to the hype. It lives up to the legacy, the legend that is the high-grade Dendrobium. Now, when it comes to kits that are about 20 or, well, more years old, they tend to be a little bit lacking when it comes to modern kits, but there's something about this that still does hold up, and I can see why it blew so many minds back in 2002, is it? Now, recently enough, I would have looked at the high-grade Meteor unit. That is from 2 years after this. So that is a 2004 kit, and that kit doesn't touch this at all. It's a mediocre to meh-ish kit. This right here, honestly, like I said already, is a legend for a reason. But let's move right on back first to the build. So out there among Gunpla, there are some builds that are just kind of ridiculously big. The boxes are massive, and what you get inside is a momentous occasion. That is what this is right here. Free up a lot of time because you will need it. This is a very involved build, and if you do want to expand on it further with some detailing, panel lining, it's going to be a super long one. This thing is huge and has a lot of parts. So much so that inside of the main box itself, we do have two sub-boxes, Container A and Container B. First off, overall, the box itself is very nicely designed. I will mention though, there is some things that shocked me a little bit about it. Some of the images on the box are a little bit JPEG-y. I guess it's maybe just the way it was back in 2002. I think this is pretty much a reproduction of the original box besides the Gundam base logo on it. Inside of it though, we do have some cool smaller containers that helps break up the build. That is Container A and Container B right here. These have some nice line art, blueprint style drawings of the Dendrobium on the front and sides of the box, which is a really nice touch. They could have just went with blank, but this is definitely an experience. Now these right here are by no means small boxes. There is a standard size high grade box for Cmparison. Now you could probably put one of these inside of each of these boxes 5 or 6 times over. So this is a whole lot of plastic contained inside of this. Now when I say there's a lot of plastic, there is a lot of plastic. Thankfully, Bandai did kind of consider this when designing this kit, which is impressive for a 2002 kit, which means that you're not going to get overloaded with runners while you're building this. You do fairly empty out runners quite quickly, so it means you're getting through them quite quick, but towards the middle of the build, you will end up with a lot of plastic lying around. I didn't really prepare for this too well, so I suggest making sure you've got something to hold onto your runners, some runner stands, an additional desk or something to make sure you just have enough space for all of the runners here. They don't have the lettering on the runners punched out like newer kits, so it is a little hard to see, so you might want to add additional labels to the runners to help you make your way through the absolute mountain of plastic. I will also mention that it's kind of skipping ahead a little bit here, but I thought it is a little bit relevant. I thought you would finish off container A before going on to container B, like there are two different units of it and then you'd put them together at the end. That is not the case. We are only about halfway through the parts in container A. You've cut bits out of most of them, but you're only halfway through all of that plastic by the time you're popping open container B. So this did get a little bit out of hand for me. Thankfully, I will mention that when you get to container B, you only are taking one packet out at a time, and they are layered in the order that you will be building. So that is nice. And in container B, it's mainly giant armored parts and giant mechanical aspects of the actual body and weapons. So you do go through those ones relatively quickly. When it comes to the actual build of this is a heavy duty kit, as you would expect from something so big, but I would say it's even more heavy duty when it comes to robust plastics than we would have seen with the giant Neo Zeong. And the plastics are definitely a lot more robust and powerful than what we would have seen in the Meteor unit. There's a lot of ABS, and there's a lot of something else. This is the most screws I have ever seen in a Gundam kit ever. Now, I hate it when there's screws in a Gundam kit. That's just a personal opinion. It just usually means something isn't designed too well, like you see them in the knees of older master grades. However, that is not the case here. This needs it and does do very well using them. Again, kind of harkening back a little bit to the Neo Zeong. That did not need any screws and still works out perfectly. But this kit definitely benefits from them. Also inside of this kit, as well as plastic, we've got giant metal plates for in the central aspect of this giant mobile armor. That combined with the screws means you do have a rock solid structure in the center of it, which does mean this feels so powerfully put together and rock solid when finished. So even though there is a lot of screwing involved in this build, it's all worth it in the end, and it's solid. Additionally, speaking of solid, we do have a stand in here as well. This is very simply designed but works so well. It's essentially just 3 parts. The big central part is 2 parts, and then that attaches into a base section. This is big, hard, probably made out of ABS, and it doesn't have like a peg or anything. The Dendrobium actually just drops onto this absolutely perfectly, and it holds it perfectly. It also means you can pick the Dendrobium up off of it without fiddling around with any like inserty bits or anything like that. It works out so well, and it, like the rest of it, super solid. So as you work your way through this build, you build a core section, drop that onto that stand, then you build a rear section, being the thrusters and some of the armor towards the back. Start to armor up a lot of the front section, and a lot of what we're building right here, this is the parts that don't move. These are just locked in place, the solid core of the Orchis itself. We then build up some more armor round back. We then get onto those giant clipper crab claw style arms. These are simple, but they build up effectively. They do have some nice moving sections inside of them, and they can hold onto the beam sabers we will be seeing later on. Next up then in here is the cannon. Now I expected this to be long. I knew it would be long. I know the whole kit is meant to be 1 meter long in total, but this is still ridiculous. You build up the barrel in 2 sections that attach together, and then the big powerful aspect that attaches onto the mobile suit itself. This is ridiculously impressive. The surface is covered in lots of nice raised and lowered parts with nice mechanical detail. You can see some of the grey inside of it, and this has some, how to say, nice geometry that catches the light perfectly in ways you don't see on something big like the Neo Zeong. It's a very nice, cool design. The same goes for the eye field generator. You just got some big parts for the interior sections, the armor pops on top, you can see through to the inner dark grey, and overall it's just so nicely detailed. I will mention though that you may need to detail up some of the metallic parts. The gold and the silvers are not present on this. By the time then you make your way onto container B, this is where I found the build got the most fun, because you're working on the most intricate and biggest aspects of this kit. That is the giant container sections that are in the upper part of the Orchis that makes up the Dendrobium. Now this is a part of the build where I'm really happy there was screws in it. It does feel a little bit tedious screwing for all of these parts, but these get pulled out. They've got a lot of mechanisms going on that if these separated inside of the kit, it would be a nightmare. And speaking of which, a little bit of a nightmare did happen. One thing that you will find in kits these days is that you can't put anything on backwards or upside down or the wrong way. That is not the case here. Pay attention. These sections that attach on the giant containers to the main body unit can actually be placed in upside down, and I did that with one of them, which means I had to take one of them completely apart in order to flip it, just flip it, to make sure it was the right way around. Now just be careful, make sure to put that in the right way. It almost looks the same both ways. But yeah, this part is so impressive. You build all of the missile sections, the missile pods, the racks for the weapons, all for up inside of those containers. Then you start attaching some absolutely giant parts together that just feel so good. They are big, but they're still nicely detailed. This comes together, you build the big moving hatches for over those container parts, and it just, at this point, you've got such impressively large parts built, it's just like nothing else out there that Gunpla has to offer. Once all the individual segments are built, then comes the most glorious part, and that is putting everything together. That is the core section of this entire mobile armor. The eye field generator onto the right, the giant cannon onto the left, the two crab-like pincer arms down below, and then both of the containers up top. And finally then you do have the Dendrobium in all of its glory. Or should I say the Orchis, because the Orchis is just the mobile armor without the Gundam. So we'll mention during this build I was a little torn between two kind of schools of thought. The first was to actually detail this up as I was going along, panel line everything, painting all of the details with Gundam markers while actually building it up, because that would be the best way to do it, instead of trying to actually work with this behemoth once it's finished. The other side of my brain was basically saying, I need to show this what it looks like out of a box. That's what really a review is all about. So that is what I went with in the end. And even though I would like to sink some more time into this, another week or two to actually get some footage of it out of box built and with a little bit of detail put in, YouTube is a little bit of a harsh mistress, so I need to maintain some kind of semblance of a schedule. So sadly, this is as far as it's going to be going. But anyway, it still looks gorgeous, and let's check out the aesthetics. So I was going to jump right on into the aesthetics right here, but I did realize there's more to this kit than the Orchis mobile armor. We also have this right here, which is the GPO3 Stamen Gundam, as well as all of its accessories. So let's quickly blast through the Stamen and what it comes with before we move on to the Stamen plus Orchis equaling that high-grade Gundam Dendrobium. So one of the coolest things about the Gundam designs in Stardust Memory is the fact that they've been named after flowers. And that pretty much extends across the GPO 1, 2, and 3. The 3 right here being the Stamen that attaches into the Orchis, making the Dendrobium itself. What's kind of funny is the stamen of a flower is well, technically the flower's dick. So this right here is the high-grade Gundam penis. But yeah, into the aesthetics here, and when I was actually building this and when I took out the runners for it, I was expecting a whole world of pain. But this is actually a more impressive Gundam kit than I thought it would be. Once again, flashing back a little bit to the high-grade Meteor unit, a kit that came out 2 years after this kit we're looking at today, and the version of the Freedom in that was very disappointing. However, this isn't all that bad. Bandai definitely put some love into the Stamen right here. A lot of the different aspects definitely feel a little bit dated, but they put some cool aspects into it, and it's not that bad. Back then, must have been phenomenal. So yeah, the Stamen right here is definitely a dated kit, but not really in every single kind of way. Overall, they've got their main colors quite well. It does have color correcting stickers like this one right here that's shiny, when I think it's just meant to be a standard red. Maybe it is meant to be some kind of lens that's shiny, but we do have some stickers involved. The kind of worst of the bunch would have been one of those older kind of eye stickers that actually makes it that the red section in there is a part of a sticker, and it's not a matte sticker either, it is a shiny sticker. But besides that, it's got those old school things like the seam lines through everything, because everything is made of a half a piece, and this goes across pretty much everything. There's one inside the head, it's quite large. The color separation is basic, but there are some nice panel lines all over it, here, there, and everywhere. So if you did a little bit of panel lining, a tiny bit of detailing up, this could look pretty cool. I know you can say that for pretty much all Gundam kits, but again, this is going to be stuck in the center of a giant unit. It's kind of going to be outshadowed a little bit. So again, not so bad. Again, if I was going to rank something like this by today's standards, it would be bronze tier, but this is not a kit from this year. It did get a little bit of a re-release either this year or last year, but I think you can't really hold that against it. I'm not going to rate this particular kit right here. It's a bit of a 20-year-old classic, so it wouldn't be fair. So jumping into the accessories, and once again, here's everything that comes inside the box with the Stamen and the Orchis. So we get the full standard Gundam loadout here of the sword, board, and beam rifle. So we do have a beam saber, a beam rifle, a shield, 2 different types of bazooka, and we do have some alternate hands to boot. So one awesome aspect about this kit right here is it does come with widespread open hands, which isn't always a guaranteed when it comes to kits. So mildly basic towards the hand, but still very nicely detailed considering the age of the kit. This is not bad looking, and we don't just get one, we get 2 of those. As for the alternate hands that we do have in here, we've got a grand total of 4, and it's basically 2 sets of fist-style holding hands for holding on to the different kinds of weapons in here. So when it comes to kind of standalone hands with no reason but looking good, we've got the widespreads. So when it comes to the beam saber that we get in here, it's one of these style. You don't see these, well, anymore, and that is you don't actually have a beam, it's just all one piece of plastic. There's the handle down there, and there is what's meant to be the beam. So you're gonna have to paint it. Swapping out Gundam hands hasn't changed in the last 20 years, you just pop it out, it's just a ball joint attachment. There are 2 types of holding hands in here, so the one with the smaller hole in it like this, so these are not the modern style kind of square rectangular hole, these actually have a little bit of a kind of rounded hole in them, and attaching the beam saber in is as simple as that right there. And honestly, not the most impressive beam saber I've ever seen, but this is the Dendrobium, by the way. I don't think anybody will be using that. So I was going to get this up in the air for some shots with some weapons, and I realized this doesn't have the 3mm hole that we have in modern kits, so this will be needing a little bit of adapter even, to sit into a stand. I'm just going to go with one of these with a kind of grabby waist section and kind of just hope for the best. The next one we have in here is the beam rifle. Again, fairly simple. It does have a side-to-side moving handle and a side-to-side moving sight like you would see on modern offerings. Besides that though, it's just 2 pieces slapped together as you'd usually see. These parts are separate, so I think it's a grand total of 4 parts. The barrel actually might be separate, so that would make it 5. Now I'm not sure which hand I'm meant to be attaching this into because none of them really hold onto it that well. This one isn't so bad, it's still kind of just loosely in there, but it's kind of doing the job a little bit. So that is what the beam rifle looks like attached into the hand. Again, not overly impressive, but it does what it needs to do. There's no real anything to this to really point out per se, so on to the next aspect. So the next thing we have in here then is the folding shield. Again, this is all just in white on that side. We've got some grey segments around here. This little handle section attachment for in the back of the forearm. These look like the E-caps or the magazines for using with the beam rifle, and they don't come out, by the way, they're just molded in there. And this is called a folding shield because it folds up like so for storage in the containers on the mobile armor. So attaching the shield is in a nice, almost kind of unique sort of way. This is a 2-point attachment. First off, we've got these supplementary sub-arms in the forearms. You open up the top of those and you attach one of the handles in. You can use the top one, the bottom one. It's completely the same. The whole thing's symmetrical. And then attach it into the rear of the forearm just like so. Now, I will mention though, the articulation here is not that great, so you won't get the greatest poses out of it. And that right there is what the shield looks like once it's attached. So next up in here, we don't have a single bazooka, but we've got a pair. Here is the first one right here. This is just 2 parts slapped together. There's nothing special to it. No moving parts. It just attaches into one of these larger hole hands just like so. Again, it's not the most secure attachment. So anyway, I was trying to get this attached and it wasn't really working out. It was all sorts of weird angles everywhere, trying to get this up onto the shoulder. It just didn't work out. And at this point, I was like, I don't really have that much time to waste on this anymore, so it's not that important. Also, this is meant to be in a lot of, well, there's meant to be a lot of white on this, as I saw in the instructions right here, which it does not have. So again, not important. Mainly something for just attaching into the Orchis. So next up in here, we've got this folding bazooka. So this has a little bit of a hinge section right there, so that can fold out just like so, and that is what it looks like. So it does have a little bit more to it than what we would have seen with the other one. So on getting this into the hand, it doesn't just slide in, you have to separate the hand sandwich style, and once you've got it attached in, you pop it on like so. And I can't tell even which way this is meant to go. Is it meant to go under the arm like this right here? If I try to throw it above on the shoulder or try to throw it under the arm, it looks awkward in every way. Once again, more so a weapon for storage. This Gundam itself, it may look okay, but it's just a little bit a lot of it, actually extremely awkward in a lot of ways. So jumping ever so quickly into the actual articulation and gimmicks on this. This is quite solid, definitely a nice solid kit, at least out of box, and that comes partially down to its simplicity. For example, if you try to bend the knee or something like that, that is all you're gonna get. Anyway, overall, that right there is it for the test pose. This is not really something that moves around much at all. The articulation is extremely limited. As for gimmicks though, the rear skirting armors here are quite nice. They do move around ever so nicely and add a lot of nice angles towards the back on this kit. We have these little moving flaps right here, again adding some nice angles to that. The thrusters right here, this one is awful for popping off because there's not much peg really holding it on. But we do have these little opening segments right here for where the beam sabers are stored. Now, these are a permanent fixture. These are not the actual beam sabers the beam saber that we have in here. So they're just there just kind of for the look. But the most awesome aspect about this particular kit right here is these little sub arms in the back of the arms. These are impressive. So basically the way these work is quite simple. This little section here opens up, and these can just fold out like this, and that is incredibly nice. Again, considering the age of this kit, this has to have been blowing minds back in 2002. That's pretty cool. This, of course, is for grabbing the weapons like you're seeing right here from the little containers up in the Orchis when the Dendrobium is all put together. And speaking of which, let's do that. So there it is in all of its glory. This is the major part of the Dendrobium known as the mobile armor, the Orchis. Honestly, this is ridiculously beautiful. Now, I've done nothing. This is it just built out of box, and it still looks incredible. Mainly thanks to the ridiculously godlike design by the over-the-top and awesome Hajime Katoki. You can see why he is so well known just from this design right here. It is sheer perfection. I've seen a lot of large mobile armors from various different Gundam universes. I've built a whole bunch of them, but none of them really compare to this. This is just so perfect. You can almost see this just blasting through space with a ridiculous amount of weight, heft, and firepower behind it. This thing is incredible, and the base underneath it, the action-based stand, just works so well and doesn't detract from it whatsoever. This is the ultimate Gundam display. So now it's finally about time to grab this here Gundam Stamen and get it into the mobile armor Orchis to finally make that Dendrobium. So in order to do that, you just get the Gundam into a bit of a Superman position like so. Make sure to flip up the backpack, and that is about it. You open up the armor sections right here, drop down a little bit of the platform it sits into, and it just slides on in just like so, perfectly, simply, and holds in, well, perfectly. Finally, then just close those little armor panels like so, and there it is finally. The high-grade Dendrobium in all of its glory. Impressive. So before I jump into any of the details, there's the full 360 spin of what this looks like. Now, I took this spin before I actually put the Gundam into it. I totally forgot to put this in earlier in the video, but it's kind of funny just seeing something so massive spinning around, and I have to hand it to that Mr. Turntable for actually being able to deal with this weight. But this is ridiculously huge. It is over or around a meter long, about 60 centimeters wide. It is a crazy, massive monster of a kit. And speaking of size comparisons, here it is side by side with some of the high-grade heavy hitters. First off, we've got the high-grade Neo Zeong, the biggest high-grade of them all, and there it is side by side with the Meteor unit. As far as I know, these are the three biggest high-grades that exist, all of which are mobile armors, and they are so cool, and these always make me just ask myself, and ask the universe in general, when is Bandai going to make the next biggest one? As for another couple of mobile armors, here we have the Narrative Gundam, I think Apex, I'm pretty sure that it is, from Narrative Gundam or Gundam NT, Gundam Typhoeus from Gundam Build Metaverse, and as you can see, this thing has those absolutely and utterly dwarfed. When it comes to just mobile suits, here's a couple of big ones. That is the Nightingale as well as the Penelope, again, completely dwarfed by this absolute monolith. As far as I know, this is the second biggest high grade you can get in your collection, and it's one that I can only say, as of right now, I highly recommend. When you get in closer to this, everything about it is absolutely perfect, even down to the stand. The stand does have detail molded into it to make it look like it is actually docked in something, like a giant hangar or onto a larger ship. Getting in closer to all the different surfaces, the eye field generator has some nice recessed detail in grey inside of that armor. On the side of the giant cannon, we've got so much nice little levels of detail that just really catches the light beautifully and adds to the kind of heft, almost in a kind of Star Wars-y kind of way. There's so much detail in here, some of which is not fully color accurate, just asking to be given that extra bit of attention. And like I mentioned, I did not have the time to detail this up in time for the video, but all of those different surfaces catch the light perfectly already that they look astounding. But actually adding in the nice panel lines, shading, the details will bring this to an entirely different level. This thing is absolutely mesmerizingly gorgeous. So moving into what we would have seen in the set of Stardust Memory OVAs, and I'm just going to take this part right here to mention, if you have not seen those OVAs, you have to. They are so good when it comes to Gundam design and Gundam mechanical design and amazing hand-drawn mechanical animation. It is unparalleled. But anyway, first off in here we've got this right here. It's a big old cannon. It shoots and of course perfect for skewering other flower-named mobile suits. From the front, this is definitely what gets your attention at first. The detailing all over it is phenomenal. Again, a little bit of panel lining and detailing up will make this look even better, but this is so long. Here's a perfect grade 4 comparison. It's even longer than a perfect grade is tall. Next up in here, we've got the eye field generator over on the other side. Again, fantastically detailed. We've got some nice white-grey armor parts layered on top of the dark grey inside. Now, I will mention we do have an option when it comes to building this. I went with this option right here with all the detail, but you can choose either of these two parts. Well, it's one part and it's either or side of it. You can have a fan finish, or you can have this detailed finished. Like I mentioned, I went for the detailed finish right here. But I will also mention that if we flick through the manual here a little bit, you'll see that there is meant to be a lot of gold and silver detail on this. Now, you will have to do this yourself. And that goes for all the detail on any of the dark grey parts you're seeing right here. The missile pods, the weapon racks, all of that. There is no color detail, so you will need to do that yourself. I also recommend doing this during the build, not after, because it's easier to do all of the small parts that you can actually move around your hand as opposed to trying to deal with this behemoth once it's finished. In the anime, we saw the Dendrobium unleash a pair of almost lobster-style claws from underneath, which can use beam sabers to, well, a very explosive effect, at least on things without eye fields. And in this regard, the high-grade Dendrobium does not disappoint, and this is one of the most impressive aspects of this kit. These are here, and they do fully extend out. They slide forward with multiple points of movement, multiple points of articulation, and slide at multiple points like so. The grabby end does open up, and there is a little bit of side-to-side articulation here as well for some battleship slashing maneuvers. This can be done, of course, on both sides. They pull out like this, and I will mention the only real issue I do have with these, and I'm only having it on one side, is that these little sections of armor right here are held on by, well, a polycap of all things, so they don't hold on as well as all the other aspects of these arms. Can take a little bit of getting used to when it comes to actually slotting these back into where they come from, but once you actually get used to it, it's super simple and super fluid. And overall, these look absolutely incredible. Such an impressive design, such an impressive kit. I can't believe it's from 2002. Next up in here, we do have a pair of beam sabers, and where the Stamen dropped the ball, the Orchis is bringing the power. These look fantastic. They're perfect grade style, I guess. They look like they're perfect grade style. These are large enough to eat your ramen with. You can remove the beams just like so, and attaching them into the claws is easy. Just open up the claw, attach the lower little tab section into the upper part, the upper tab hole into the lower part, and these hold on perfectly, and that is what both of them look like attached. So this not just has long range firepower, it also has close range attacks as well. What a beast. So if this mobile armor was not impressive enough already, there is more. We can open up the big canisters or containers up top, first by pulling up this little segment like this, and like this. And then you can open up these flaps like this, this, and this. And inside of it, we've got tons of awesome detail. But like I mentioned, some of this is meant to be in white metallic colors as well. So if you do want this to look absolutely perfect, you will have to detail it up. All of these don't open up, only a couple of them, or should I say half of them. So let's get them open. So you're actually able to tell which of these open by kind of pressing on them. The ones that kind of have a little bit of give, these ones are the ones that open. So 1, 2, 3, and 4 right here. Now these have a little bit of a spring-loaded gimmick. When you're building this kit, you have to build 8 of these little segments, and these are 3 parts together with a spring in them to give them a little bit of a kind of, I guess the only way to really describe it is, you know, with the clicky bit in a pen, one click is the pen out, one click is the pen back in. It's the exact same thing with these for opening these containers. It's very, very nicely designed. As well as that, each of these have a little bit of a switch on the top. If you pull them in towards the center, that is open, and that unlocks them. If you push it out towards, so I might guess away from the center, that locks them in position. It can be a little hard to get used to, but once you do, you'll get it just right. And the same comes with the kind of spring mechanism. I was poking a lot of these quite a bit until I realized you really have to push them in, not a wimpy little push. You really have to push them in and then let go, and they'll shoot out pretty far. So yeah, once you actually get used to these, they work very fluidly. So we have multiple different things stored inside of these giant containers, so let's check them out. So we only get to access 8 out of the 16 in here, but it's still pretty awesome. So we're going to start from the outside right here and work our way in. The first thing we have here is one of these missile pods. So this is a, what is that, 3 by 11? 12. So we've got 36 of these tiny missiles per side. So this thing comes fully loaded. We've got a thruster on the back, and if you remember the scene from the anime, actually if you don't, I'll throw it in right here. This just jets on out of here in between a whole bunch of mobile suits and absolutely annihilates them. It's basically a big old cluster bomb. Now these little missile sections, they are meant to be in yellow. They'll be easy enough to color in yourself, so you're just going to have to get some yellow paint or a Gundam marker or go whole hog and paint the whole thing, but these are not color accurate out of the box. This one right here, the second one, this is for weapon storage. We'll get to those in a bit. The fourth one in, that one is also for weapon storage. We'll also get to that one in a bit. And this one right here, this is our 3 canister missile. So basically it's like 3 pipes strapped together. I guess it just separates then in flight and does what a missile needs to do. Blows things up. So as for these storage compartments, when it comes to storing the weapons, you just obviously open them up to the full length like so, and then pop the weapons in. Now, once again, I was having a little bit of issue here because the one just to the left, or from our perspective, to the right of the Stamen is meant to be the folding bazooka, but I couldn't get it in no matter how much I tried. And then I remembered I had to take this whole section apart earlier on because something went in upside down. And then when I flipped to something that was in there upside down the right way round, I must have put both of these containers in arseways. So that means the one closest to the Gundam is now holding the beam rifle, the one a little further out is now holding the folding bazooka. So you can actually change around where they are if you want to, but if you want to keep it accurate, you'd want to do it the other way. Once again, that was just because I made a little bit of a mistake during the build. Anyway, once all of the weapons like the folding shield and the other bazooka are attached in, they all close in flush like so. You can close the armor then down over them. Of course, we can recreate those awesome scenes from the anime where the Stamen reaches for its weapons up in those container sections with the sub-arm in its arm. You just lift up the arm like so, bust out that sub-arm, and pose it just like so. As far as I can see, you... Oh wait, while I'm actually voicing this over, I realize there's a third joint I did not get to, which allows this part to pull up even further, and that will most definitely reach the weapon. That's cool. And one thing I did forget to mention earlier on is there is a pull-out handle right here in the side of that massive cannon, as well as this fold-out sight section. So that means you can have it holding onto the cannon for when the Gundam is actually firing. This has a whole lot on board. I am so beyond impressed. But yeah, what can I say? That is it for the review. This is a mind-blowing kit. The Stamen inside of it isn't the greatest kit around, but you know, for 20 years old, it's pretty good for a Gunpla. But this mobile armor is mind-blowing. It's just so good. It does everything it needs to do and more. The only thing you really need to do yourself is add a couple of minute details onto the dark grey section. But, well, that's kind of the case for a lot of Gunpla. That is not unusual. I cannot recommend this enough. It just does... I can see why it's a legend. What can I say? There's no point in me really over-reiterating everything I said throughout this review. It's so impressive. It's so cool. If you can get your hands on one, it is totally worth it. It is a monolithic, brilliant Gundam display. Now, is it better than the Neo Zeon? In some ways, yes. In some ways, no. But they make Quite the beautiful pair. Anyway, I got mine through Bai. You can too. Link is down there in the description. As always, thank you so much for watching. Make sure to come back for more Gunpla reviews, and I'll see you next time. As always, this video right here would not have been possible without each and every single one of you guys, so thank you so much for watching, and as usual, special thanks to those of you who helped me out over on the channel memberships right here and on Patreon, including Abraxas, Caleb Engelhart, Dashiell Marmion, Go Little Rockstar, Joe, Org59061, 10 Soldier YT, and Van Fawn.